The previous video, we started talking about what we call the Shavatara, the 10 different avatars of God, Vishnu. And we talked about the evolution from spiritual evolution, from that fish form, the Matsya, all the way to Narasimha. In this video, actually, I want to talk about something very different, which is even going back to the very first video in this series. We talked about number 7, right? And we dealt with it in a few different ways and looked at a few things. And I mentioned at the time that there's so many things that are 7, like the energy coming from the sun, different colors and so on. We talked about Sapta Swara in music, 7 notes, Sapta Rishi, Mandala, and so on. I want to sort of tie that up with one of the avatars in the Dashavatara today. So I'm sort of like combining both the number thing and the symbol thing here, right? Putting it sort of together in a very interesting thought. Right? So if we go back and look at the avatar as one of the most important in Kali Yuga, the most important avatar for us is Krishna. So Krishna came at the meeting point of last Yuga and this Kali Yuga. And the Mahabharata war took place, and we know all those things. Let's just focus on the symbolism. So if you think of Krishna, you think of him standing there with a flute. I mean, that occurs to most of us, right? Like, it's kind of hard to think of Krishna without his flute. Right? And if you go look in the Puranas, look at the 10th and the 11th part of Srimad Bhagavatam, where all of this is explained in great detail, Krishna Avatar. They say that if Krishna started playing his flute, people just become, freaked out. Like even animals they say that the cows would stop chewing the cud, So it was so fascinating. So on. So if you think of that, I say, okay, fine, maybe he's a good flute player. Okay, it's good for him, but yeah, too bad that I cannot listen to that now and whatever, and just move on with life. What's with this flute business, In the first place, if you look at a traditional flute, like nowadays they make flute with metal, all kinds of things. But if you look at a traditional Indian flute, right? It is always made with bamboo, a piece of bamboo. So if you look at a bamboo, that thing, it almost seems like a useless thing. Like, it doesn't give any fruits that I can eat. It doesn't give shade from the sun. It doesn't do anything. So it's just silly thing just standing, like a little stick. Of course, when it's, some people eat it, prepare it in food. But basically, it almost seems like a useless thing, right? Almost. But the thing is, the very thing that you may think is useless can produce beautiful music, wonderful music. But what has to happen for that? Because for it to, a bamboo just sticking out of earth cannot produce music, right? So someone has to take that and, process that and so on, get the right length, and then put all the right holes in the right place and so on. And then it's capable of playing music. That's all. So somebody has to actually play the music, right? So I think we can agree on all that. Now, let's talk about classical music a little bit. In classical music, both Western, by the way, even in Western things, they have 7 notes. And we have 7 notes too in the Indian classical system. Both Carnatic as well as Hindustani. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni. There's 7 notes. In the English, in the Western thing, they say do, re, mi, all that. But whatever you call it, the fact is there's 7 notes. It's interesting. If you go to a toy store, you can do it right now. So let's say you go to a toy store, Target or something, and you go look at these keyboards, right? That they make for little kids, just to play with, right? You know what you'll find? The lowest frequency one, they actually would make it red. Second one would be orange. So you say, what? Why is it like that? And I even asked some people, so what is this? I don't know, that's how it is. Right? Why should you do that? Why can't you make the first one green? Right? But you go look, it actually turns out that they have red in the first one, right? And so I was thinking about that, for ever so long, at some point, way back when when people started doing these things, there was this thought, okay, and over time we just lost it, that's all. We lost it. So if you look at music, classical music, if you look at our classical music, there is a thing we call, the tune is referred as raga. In northern part of India, they say rag, we say, southern part we say raga, but whatever you go. So what is that? Well, it is there are 2 parts to it. One is the ascending order and the descending order. We call it arohana and avarohana, ascending, descending order. So every raga has a specific ascending order and a specific descending order. But the music actually is created in the transition from one to the other. We call that gamaka. Right? So how do you transition from one note to the next note? A wonderful musician will transition that beautifully, right? So you cannot randomly mix up notes, because then we say that is apaswara. Not good, it doesn't sound good. But if something has to sound good and evoke emotions inside you, right? Different ragas evoke different bhava, right? Different emotions. So for that, you have to stay within that ascending and descending order, and the transition has to be very good. So that's about the music. Now let's put all these things. Why does Krishna have a flute? And why is his music so fantastic? See, what happens in life is that if I get stuck at one note, okay. So for example, let's say you have a piano or you're playing some instrument, right? Or a flute, for example. If you keep on playing that one note, that's not music. Okay. Nobody will call that music. I have to sometimes say, just stop that. It's irritating. Stop it. Second thing is, if you play out of tune, it's very harsh. Say, dude, I don't want to listen to that, right? So when you look at life, I had said in one of the videos that the red color represents karma, desire, and we're all blessed with that. We're all blessed with that. So if I compare the energy colors, coming from the sun with these 7 notes, right? Sa, the lowest, is Re, Ga, Ma. It keeps going up, right? Frequency keeps going. So the lowest note is Sa. And that you can say is the same as red. So a starting point is the same, this desire, So in life, if life has to be a beautiful tune that is played by God, right? Then I have to subject myself to his playing, right? So only if I allow him to play. Otherwise, there's no point, right? Again, you can take a piece of bamboo, don't have proper holes, and you can pull and you can play that, blow that, right? It's just an irritating sound. Sometimes kids do that, right? They just keep blowing like that birthday thing, So once or twice it's okay, but they keep doing the 5th time, you say, stop it, right? So similarly, if my whole life is blowing that one note, all the people around will say, stop it, So for my life to play beautiful music, these transitions have to be good. So one day I may have a desire, right? And that desire may result in something. And in the next phase, after 1 year or 2 years, I may develop vairagya. I'll say, what, this is it? Like, let's say I want to buy a Jaguar. Desire. I go buy my Jaguar. And initially I'm all excited and all that. And again, the transition is there, right? But after 6 months or 1 year, you say, this is it. I mean, it's okay. So you don't have that attachment to that. That's what I mean by vairagya. So when you transition, and you don't transition just, you don't go sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da. If you keep doing that, that's not music, right? So there are different notes. So you may jump from one to the other. It's also interesting that when people tune instruments, in classical music, you go to a concert or something, when they tune, they're tuning on 2 things, sa and pa. So which one is pa? Sa, re, ga, ma, pa. It's the 5th one. So what is that 5th color? Blue. What is Krishna's color? Neela Megha Shyama, blue. Right? So the 2 references, the first one is red or sa, desire, kama. The second one is Bhagavantha. They're higher colors, if you want to call it that, higher levels of energy when you start experiencing that divine energy. But blue is the starting point. So those are the 2 things they tune on, right? Any musician will tune on that. So Krishna playing flute doesn't mean that some guy 5,000 years ago was standing somewhere in a forest playing a flute. Maybe he was. But in my life, he can still play flute in my life. My life, my karma, everything that I do can become actually Krishna's Venunada. But for that, I should surrender. Just like the flute should be given to Krishna to play. In the first place, the energy that I have to sadhana, through efforts, right? I should experience, just like that bamboo should have all the holes, right? Similarly, I should, through effort, through sadhana, I should have experienced all of these things. Vairagya, everything, right? All the 7 different things. Then you hand it over to him. So in my life, he will make sure that when I jump from one thing to another thing in life as a function of time, it will be according to a beautiful raga. And not just that, the transition from note to note, that gamaka as we call it, will also be beautiful. right? So that Venunada is something amazing. So can you hear that? Can you hear that flute playing in life? Yes, you can if you surrender to him. When I say hear, I don't mean physically hear, but can you experience that? That's what I mean, not hear. That's the wrong word. Can you experience that? Of course you can. Of course you can. And that is what is referred as Krishna consciousness. So what happens is that awareness, no matter where I call him Krishna, I call him by some other name, I don't care. But the thing is, the presence of God, the presence of that infinite one in everything that happens in life. And as I transition, someday I find out a lot of things, knowledge. That's the green space, right? Someday I may be subjected to difficulties in life for purification purposes. That's the yellow stage. Someday I may just form detachment and say, I don't want to be attached to anything, like that's the saffron or orange phase. Someday I may want something. I say, I want this, I want that. So that is the red phase and so on, right? And some days I may just get away from everything and experience the divine. That is the blue, indigo, and violet, depends on what level you're at, right? That phase, right? But these transitions now, the transitions have to happen according to predefined ascending and descending order, because one ascending order and descending order will give you one raga. Another one, for example, we have, I don't want to get into music here, but there's one raga called Kalyani, right? So, Kalyana. So, then something that gives you Kalyana is Kalyani, right? So, Bhairavi, Kalyani, there's so many Mohana, there's so many different ragas, and each one with its own ascending and descending order of notes. So each one will create that bhava. Sometimes bhakti, so different things, very different motions. But in order for that to happen, number one, just like I said before, the bamboo should have the holes in the right place, right? Similarly, why should I put in the effort? Why should I do sadhana? Why? So that it's like creating the holes in the bamboo, so that I have created and have experienced all these different levels of energy. Only then he with a capital H, he can take this flute, and then play that so that it creates beautiful music, which is the most enchanting of all. Right? So that Krishna playing the flute, like I said at the beginning, it's a sort of combination of symbolism and numerology also, actually, right? The number 7 gets into that. And our hope should be that this life will create beautiful music, and enchanting music. But for me to think that I will create that music is like the flute thinking that it will create the music. It's not the flute that creates the music, it's the person playing the flute that creates the music. Similarly, it's not me creating that music, but it's that one who is playing through me, right? So as long as that awareness is there and that submission is there, but at the same time not sitting quiet, but doing my thing, doing my karma, doing my thing, but creating all these different levels of energy inside me and offering it all to him. It's just like giving flute to Krishna. They say, okay, I've done all this, here you go. This is all yours. Now do what you want. Then he will play that flute and create that wonderful, wonderful music in life, right? So that's my interpretation. It's not something I read somewhere, but this is when I contemplate on this is my interpretation. I'm not saying that's the only correct interpretation, but I think that makes sense to me. Hopefully it will make some sense to you also. And I hope that all of us create beautiful music in this universe.